Thanksgiving was always a cherished tradition for the Millers. Warm meals, familiar faces, and countless shared memories. But this year, the routine would be shattered by an unexpected arrival. A stranger claiming to be family would join their celebration, bringing with him secrets, suspicion, and a chilling realization. A tall, thin man stood on the porch, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. He carried a worn suitcase in one hand and a pie dish in the other. His smile was faint but polite as he introduced himself. The father hesitated, surprised, but gestured for him to come in. It was Thanksgiving, after all, and no one wanted to turn away someone claiming to be family. The atmosphere remained polite, but there was a tension in the air. The stranger ate with a hunger that seemed out of place, his every movement deliberate and measured. The youngest daughter leaned close to her brother, whispering her unease. When the mother asked about his parents, the stranger claimed to be the son of Margaret, the family's long-lost great-aunt. His answer was smooth, but something about it didn't sit right. Upstairs, the eldest son sifted through dusty photo albums and family trees, searching for any mention of Margaret's supposed child. His mother soon joined him, her own suspicions gnawing at her. The son pointed out that there was no record of Margaret having children. The mother agreed, noting the stranger's vague answers during dinner. Together, they began to piece together a chilling realization. This man might not be who he claimed to be. Meanwhile, in the living room, the youngest daughter approached the stranger's suitcase, her curiosity getting the better of her. Just as she reached out to open it, the man's hand shot out, gripping her wrist tightly. The room fell silent as the stranger's sudden movement startled everyone. His voice, calm yet icy, cut through the tension. He told the girl firmly that the suitcase was private and not to be touched. The father intervened, suggesting that everyone retire for the night, but the unease lingered. That night, no one in the house could sleep, not with the stranger under their roof, and certainly not with the question of what he was hiding. In the dead of night, the eldest son crept downstairs, unable to shake his curiosity. He froze when he heard murmured voices coming from the kitchen. In the dimly lit kitchen, the stranger was alone, speaking in hushed tones. But he wasn't talking to anyone. They were names. Family names, repeated like a chant, as if committing them to memory. The son stepped back, accidentally knocking over a chair. The noise startled the stranger, who turned sharply, his eyes glinting in the dark. The stranger's expression was no longer polite. It was cold, calculating, and when he spoke, his words sent chills down the boy's spine. The man said the son shouldn't be there, at least not yet, his tone implying something sinister. The son fled, his heart racing, and locked himself in his room. By morning, the stranger was gone. His suitcase was missing, and the family was left with more questions than answers. They found a note on the mantel where their Thanksgiving portrait had been. The family stared in silence, the words scrawled in an elegant but chilling script. The Millers thought Thanksgiving was a time for gratitude and togetherness, but sometimes family ties run deeper than anyone could imagine, and some strangers aren't strangers at all. Was the stranger truly a long-lost cousin, or was he something far darker? Some mysteries, it seems, are destined to remain unsolved. In the Morton family, nothing symbolized Thanksgiving more than Grandma Helen's famous stuffing. For decades, it was the one dish that united everyone at the table. But behind the rich aroma and mouth-watering flavor lay a secret, one buried for generations. This Thanksgiving, that secret would claw its way to the surface, threatening to tear the family apart. Every year, the stuffing stole the spotlight. It was Grandma Helen's legacy, perfected in a tiny kitchen decades ago. She'd always said the recipe was special, something only the Mortons could truly understand. No one dared question her, until now. One of the guests marveled at the dish, saying it tasted like magic, something no one else could replicate. And they weren't wrong. No one else could, because no one else knew what really made it so unique. After the meal, curiosity got the better of Lily. She couldn't resist peeking inside the legendary book. It was old, its pages yellowed and brittle. The stuffing recipe was there, but parts of it were smudged, blurred as if someone had tried to erase them. She frowned, confused by the obscured ingredients. Paul shrugged dismissively, suggesting that maybe Grandma had wanted to keep the recipe a secret. But Lily's unease deepened when she noticed the margins, filled with strange notes written in Grandma Helen's shaky handwriting. Instructions, warnings, and one line that sent a chill down her spine. The ingredients must always be fresh. Curiosity drove Lily to the attic, where she unearthed pieces of her grandmother's past. Among the dusty keepsakes was a faded photograph of a young Helen standing beside an older woman in front of a dense, dark forest. Tucked alongside it were letters, pleas for Helen to leave a place called Willow Hollow. Lily whispered the name under her breath. Willow Hollow. It was unfamiliar, yet the weight of those words made her heart race. Something about it felt wrong. The next morning, Lily convinces Paul to help her drive to Willow Hollow. They arrive at a remote, decaying village surrounded by skeletal trees. The siblings found it, Willow Hollow, a ghost town long forgotten, its crumbling buildings swallowed by the forest. At its center was the old inn where Helen had once worked as a cook. Inside, they discovered a ledger that at first glance seemed to hold recipes, but as Paul flipped through its pages, the truth became horrifyingly clear. These weren't recipes, they were records, dates and names belonging to the missing residents of Willow Hollow, families who had vanished over 60 years ago. And at the bottom of the list was a name they recognized: Helen Morton. Back home, Lily dives into research. She uncovers a decades-old article titled, "Willow Hollow Vanishes. Town's residents disappear without a trace." The article described how the entire population of Willow Hollow had vanished without explanation. The only survivor? A young cook named Helen, who had fled the town just before it was consumed by tragedy. Lily began to suspect that her grandmother hadn't run from the horror, she had brought it with her. Lily flipping through the recipe book again. Her eyes widen as she deciphers the missing ingredient. The stuffing wasn't just a dish, it was a ritual, and its secret ingredient wasn't something you could buy at the store. At the next gathering, Lily couldn't stay silent. She told her family everything: the ledger, the letters, the connection to Willow Hollow. Her words echoed in the silent room as everyone stared at her in disbelief. But her mother's reaction was different. Calmly, her mother asked if Lily had been digging into family history. Lily demanded to know if her mother knew the truth, her voice trembling. Her mother's response was chilling. "Some truths are better left buried," her mother said, her voice eerily calm. "This family survives because of that recipe. It's our legacy, and now you're part of it." Lily couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion. In the basement, she found the truth. A hidden freezer filled with vacuum-sealed bags. Each was marked with a name, and the realization hit her like a cold slap. The stuffing's secret ingredient wasn't herbs or spices. It was people. Her mother's voice drifted down the stairs, soft but chilling. "Grandma always said the best traditions are worth protecting, even if it takes sacrifice." At the next family gathering, the stuffing is once again the centerpiece. Lily sits quietly, her hands trembling as she passes the dish to a guest. Lily had learned the family's dark secret, but now she faced an impossible choice: expose it and risk becoming the next volunteer, or carry on the tradition, just as her grandmother had. Every family has a tradition, but some traditions should never be celebrated, especially when they're served on your plate. If you're enjoying these stories so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Your support motivates us to keep creating even more great content. Now back to our final story. Thanksgiving at the Eldridge house was always a grand affair, old traditions, familiar faces, and enough food to feed the neighborhood. But this year, one guest was different. One guest didn't come to celebrate. They came to change everything. A tall stranger stood silently on the porch, their face completely obscured by an elaborate mask, golden with intricate carvings and hauntingly empty eyes. In one gloved hand, they held a small gift box wrapped in crimson paper. The father, momentarily startled, greeted them warmly, though his smile wavered as he asked if they were a friend of Marion's from work. The stranger gave a slight nod, a polite acknowledgement, but said nothing. Their silence seemed to unsettle the father, who hesitated before finally gesturing for them to come inside. The stranger stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, their presence filling the room with a strange heaviness. The father led them to the dining room, where the rest of the family turned to look, surprise flickering across their faces. The conversation flowed awkwardly, with family members casting subtle glances at the masked figure. The mother, ever the gracious host, broke the silence, complimenting their unique mask and asking if it was part of a tradition. The eldest daughter whispered to her cousin, asking if they had ever seen this person before. The cousin shook their head, glancing nervously at the stranger, who seemed to be paying attention to every word despite their silence. Attempting to lighten the mood, the father suggested opening the gift the masked guest had brought. He carefully untied the ribbon, pulling off the lid to reveal a stack of old sepia-toned photographs. The photographs were unsettling. Each one depicted a group of people seated around a table, much like their own, with a single masked figure in the background. The youngest son pointed out that the mask in the photos was identical to the one their guest was wearing now. Unease rippled through the room. The eldest son demanded answers, asking who the stranger was and why they had brought these disturbing photographs. The guest remained still, their silence unnerving. The mother pleaded for an explanation, her voice trembling, but the guest didn't respond. At this, the masked figure rose slowly, their towering presence casting an imposing shadow over the room. They reached into their coat pocket, retrieving a folded piece of paper. Handing it to the father, they turned and walked toward the door, their movements deliberate and unhurried. The note was short but chilling. To the Eldridge family, I am the keeper of your debt. Tonight was merely a reminder. Your time will come soon. The room fell silent. The mother picked up one of the photographs, her face growing pale as she studied the faces in the image. She realized with a sinking feeling that the people in the photos weren't strangers. They were their ancestors. The resemblance was undeniable, and each image told the same story. Thanksgiving celebrations haunted by the presence of a masked figure. The masked guest had vanished into the night, leaving only the photographs and the ominous note behind. But the unease lingered. Who were they? And what debt did the family owe? The boy pointed to the porch, where the ornate mask now rested on the railing, its empty eyes seeming to watch the house. The stranger was gone, or were they? Some debts, it seems, can never truly be repaid. If you loved this episode, be sure to check out our other videos. Thank you for watching. See you on our next video.